We lost a legend in sports last night.
Oh, yeah, Bobby.
Yep.
Big Bobby.
I love that guy. And I know nowadays, probably in the minority when it comes to, that wouldn't be accepted these days and his treatment of players and all that. That was old school as old school could get. And I thought he was hilarious. I thought it was great.
He was effective, too, in his era.
Yeah.
He was an Ohio guy. A lot of people recognize him as, the Indiana head basketball coach because of his success there as a coach. But born in Ohio, born right outside of Massillon, and went to Ohio State. I grew up knowing Bobby Knight for that. He was a part of the teams with John Havlicek and Jerry Lucas that they won a national championship. They went to 3. They actually lost in the finals twice. But that was kind of the legend of what I knew of him growing up in Columbus, Ohio. And, it was interesting watching his coaching career because as great of a coach as he was, there was also controversy that came along with it.
Yeah.
But you couldn't deny the fact that he was passionate about the game. He was passionate about the players he coached. And I just – it's one of those legendary coaches that you lose and you say, there'll never be anyone like Bob Knight again. Never. And it was pretty awesome, too, to hear the stories of coaching the Olympic teams with Michael Jordan and so many other greats that he was able to be a part of and coach. And even for the guy who he's quoted as saying it. He thought he was the greatest basketball player he'd ever seen before he even touched a basketball in the NBA.
Yep.
And when you hear him tell stories about how he'd coached him and how he talked to him, how he tried to motivate the greatest basketball player in history, in his opinion, it was just great. It's just fantastic to listen back to and think about. Not just it's beyond sports. It's beyond motivating a human who's done stuff that no one else has ever seen before. So it was pretty cool to look back on some of his quotes and comments.
You guys remember the great Purdue rant? I believe this was somebody had mic'd up, or there was a mic going in the locker room, and it got leaked. He was just so fed up losing to Purdue and being kind of a mediocre team at that time. So you tell me if this would be something that we could hear nowadays from coaches and the way people take stuff personally.
Want to play, then I'm getting the out of here. If you're not going to recover Greg Graham, if you're just going to let him drive by you, if the rest of you are going to let him catch the ball outside the 3-second lane and drive all the way in here without one guy challenging him, then I'm leaving and you guys will run till you can't even suffer. Now, I'm tired of this. I'm sick and tired of an 8-10 record. I'm tired of losing to Purdue. I'm not here to around this week. Now, you may be, but I'm not. Now, I'm going to guarantee you that if we don't play up there Monday night, you aren't going to believe the next 4 days. Now, I am not here to get my ass beat on Monday. Now, you better understand that right now. This is absolute bullshit. Now, I'll run your ass right into the ground. I'll run you. You'll think last night was a picnic. I had to sit around for a year with an 8-10 record in this league. And you will not put me in that position again, or you will goddamn pay for it like you can't believe. Now you better get your head out of your ass.
I love it.
I swear to God.
I bet you so many people would hear that and be mortified.
Oh, God.
Today's type of person, that's too much.
Yeah.
I was that's
too much. They call that bullying.
I was going to say, you think we'll ever hear that again? That that'll ever be something that, or it would even be made public because of the reaction.
That's the thing. It won't be made public.
It won't be made public.
Yeah.
But, people tend to forget, too. He coached Coach K during his time in Army.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, he consulted with Bo Schembechler. It touched all sorts of different sports during his time. He's a legend. And that's the toughest part is I know you want to get off to some little cheery, happy start. It's kind of hard, though, when you lose a guy like that everyone looks – at least I looked at always as one of the greatest coaches, not just basketball, but greatest coaches of all time because he was so unique in the manner in which he did it. And I think he was like that – I don't know how your guys' grandfathers were, but, my grandfather, my mom's side was tough. And he didn't show you love very often. When he did, it was like those moments that you like really kind of clung to. But he was always trying to teach you something, at least from what I can remember, because he passed away when I was young. But I remember being like scared of him. But at the same time, like anytime he wanted to talk to me, I always went over to him. I'd listen, and he'd try to teach me something and try to impart something. He kind of reminded me as more of one of those figures than anything else.
You know, you mentioned him coaching Coach K at Army. That's what I always looked at him as. He was just a representation of what that military mindset represented. While some may look at what he was doing or how he was handling things look to be more like I said, like bullying or fear factors and stuff like that. When you start to think about the importance of life and death, which that's what it was connected to the military, your training, the things you did, your execution, just understanding what was at stake was your life. And when you're at Army, that's a common thread that connects and bonds everybody together. And that was how I was raised. I never served, and I would never want to pretend to act like I did, because I know how important and how serious in nature, serving represents. And so to me, just growing up, now my father, he found God when he came back from Vietnam. So it wasn't, my dad wasn't the type in the house that used profanity or anything like that. But my granddad, like you said, and he was a church going man. He was a deacon in the church too, but he wasn't a deacon the other 6 days of the week, as it applied to how you were supposed to do things and how you were supposed to handle things. And there's just a certain cadence and a certain way that you go about encouraging and influencing the ones around you that you love and you care about. And it may have come across as not caring. It may have came across as a little, crass or just very aggressive. But all in all, it was out of love. And that was the one thing you always heard, from the players, like the most, the one I listened to the most and you hear the most about historically for me was Isaiah Thomas talking about him and how much they loved him as a coach and what his approach to discipline and his approach to creating a standard. Like, I don't want to run, and I don't want to run so much that it makes playing the game seem like a picnic. I don't want to have consequences to me not being the person that I know the standard that's been created for us to be. I don't want those consequences. And then you start to apply those things in your everyday living and in your everyday life. You get up on time. You're afraid to not get up on time on your own. The only consequences are the consequences you have to deal with in those moments. But when you have somebody in your life, a figure in your life, a role model in your life, like a Bobby Knight, while many may think his techniques and his approach may have been too aggressive or whatever it is you may have wanted to think, out of pocket. But I just know when you have coaches that care as much as Bobby Knight did and went after it and approached it the way that he did, it was to me, it was more of a work of art to admire versus to be mortified and to be scared of, because it takes somebody that believes enough in what you do, the talents that you have, to approach you in a way where they can force you to go to depths and places in your emotions and in your mind where you never would have made it if you didn't have somebody who didn't push you to that place. So shots out to him, man. He influenced a lot of coaches, a lot of different styles that maybe a dying art, but shots out to him and respect to him. Thoughts and prayers to his family.
Yeah, and you can question a lot of things about, his approach, the things he said, the way he talked to people. You can't question the results, man. His impact on the sport, you mentioned the story about Michael Jordan, recognizing that early, the Olympics, Isaiah Thomas, all those players, Coach K, Aaron Torres, who covers college basketball, also has a show here on Fox Sports Radio. He had a little nugget that he sent out on Twitter yesterday that Jim Calhoun, the former UConn coach, he was offered the Northwestern and the UConn job the same offseason. He was leaning Northwestern, and Bobby Knight convinced him to go to UConn, and the rest is history. Completely turned around that program. They won all those national titles. So just his influence, even to this day, and you see the outpouring of modern-day coaches, and it's just an extension of all the messaging and just his approach throughout the course of his career. He was awesome, man.
I only have one question.
Yeah, what's that?
I only have one question.
What's that?
Well, how is he going to be buried? Because I think, based on some things he said, I think we know how he wants to be buried, right?
Yes, we do.
When my time on earth is gone and my activities here are past, I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my
He's just awesome.
Well, there you go.
Bravo, man.
And if they do it, that might be the dopest ass ever in the history. Y'all kiss coach's ass.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
I love it, man. I love it. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I was thinking about, too, and when we talk about coaching styles and the manners which they do is I always felt like if you were going to criticize anyone, it was never going to be a player of a Bob Knight coach team. And in part because he always made himself the target. And I think there's like a brilliance in that too. Now, maybe some people will say it's egotistical because the guys can do it in different ways. Like, you don't have to do it the way he did it, where everything seems like that, much more strict and tough demeanor. You could do it in a way that just constantly brings attention to yourself. But the reality is like, as a player, I'm sure all those guys, as much as they were coached hard, they knew they were loved and that he was going to step up to the plate for them every single time. And there's something to that, you know?
There is something to it.
Yeah. Well, listen, rest in peace to the great Bobby Knight. And as LaVar mentioned, thoughts and prayers to his family. Just an awesome career, amazing impact. And it's fun to hear and listen back to some words that you'll probably never hear from a modern-day coach, or at least never hear publicly from a modern-day coach in this day and age. So awesome stuff there.